Hi, I'm Dan Waters, and welcome to Dom of X.
All right, what is going on, everybody? I am Dom of X, comicreleases.com assistant editor, and today I am continuing the tour of, well, pretty much every single DC All In person I could think of, and today I have the pleasure of talking to the writer of Homesick Pilots. You probably know him from Loki, Arkham City, and to be soon, Nightwing, and a brand new Batman book that we're going to be getting all the scoops on here. I am talking with Dan Waters. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on, Dominic.
No, thank you. Thank you. And a little question I always like to ask, and actually real quick, I want to give a quick shout out to my buddy Will from Titan Comics for getting this all set up together. Very, very huge thank you to him. On that notion and that part. Could not have this without you. But first of all, Dan, how did you get into comics? How did you get into the medium, so to speak?
I think the story I generally tell is like I always knew I wanted to write. Initially, I thought that was going to be in film, and I thought like horror films, writing and directing horror films was going to be where I ended up, but I started a sort of film studies course at university, which I didn't get along with, and I left that, started a literature course, was reading a ton of comics, uh, and then started working for a sort of British micro publisher as an intern. But through that, I made contacts like Casper Wingard and Will from Titan. We're old friends. Ryan O'Sullivan, and I sort of through them met Ron V, Alex Packnetto, and just started making stuff. Casper and I really gelled. He's always been an incredible artist. So we made our first pitch together, which we took to Image. They picked it up, and it all just it all kind of built from there. I think it probably looks from the outside like it went quite quickly, but it really didn't. It's been, we're coming up to the 10-year anniversary of Limbo next year. So been sort of just developing and always trying to get like better at the craft since then. And it's been a sort of dream job. I've been getting to do it. I was at university still when Limbo came out, so I've been working in comics since I left education.
Yeah, that's man. I mean, it seems like your life has sort of been dominated by graphic novels, the art, which is honestly pretty cool to hear of it. It's like it shapes you, molds you, and now it's like you're getting to write Dick Grayson, you're getting to write Doctor Who, you're getting to write like all of these different characters that I like. That's just a pretty awesome dream to be realized in general.
Yeah, I mean, it's just sort of getting to do what I want to do, and doing it in a way where I'm allowed to bring my own interests and whatever sort of is preoccupying me at the time. I think I've kind of sort of set my career in a certain way where hopefully people come to me because they like what I do rather than trying to sort of slot me into a specific kind of
Sure. But it's like now you figured out the niche. It seems. I mean, you're gonna be writing Nightwing, and actually, let's go ahead and talk about that real quick, because you are taking the helm of Dick Grayson, who is arguably one of the most important characters in all of fictional history, on a pretty explosive first arc to All In with Dexter Soy. My question to you is, how did you pitch or get the Nightwing book? How did that all come about?
Yeah, I mean, so I've been doing the backups on Detective Comics for Ram V. He's a good friend, and we work together a lot. And so he brought me in to do the backups on those, which is also with some editors that I worked with before at DC. But Jess Burby, who's the editor of Nightwing, was also assisting on that. So when the Nightwing gig came free, she reached out to me because she liked what I've been doing on the backups, and I wrote a pitch from there. I think that actually went through a few revisions, but the sort of notes I was getting was just go bigger, go bigger, go more you with it, which is always the nice note to get. So yeah, after a few revisions of that, we sort of just jumped into it.
Yeah, I mean, now it seems like we're going a lot more street level, a lot more ground level, with him and the city of Blüdhaven, just overall, because I think one of the coolest things about Dick Grayson as a character is he gets his own sort of sandbox to play in. Like, he doesn't have to be completely connected with Bruce. He doesn't have to be in Gotham all the time. I guess my question is, how do you plan to bring the city of Blüdhaven and characterize it overall for your run?
I mean, I'm also like very aware that this is Nightwing issue 119 is where I'm taking over with, and it's coming off the back of Tom and Bruno's run, which has been, absolutely stellar, and it's, won every award under the sun, and they've made some sort of major changes to Blüdhaven, which I think are very interesting. So it's definitely about building off what they did, or building a little, breaking it a little, just because I'm a cynical bugger. So the city's in a whole new place. The crime lord Blockbuster is gone, and that sort of, I think that just inevitably creates a power vacuum. So there are these new gangs that have moved in, some new, some old, to try and sort of claim their piece of the pie, and this is causing problems for the city. So there's a lot of these sort of power grabs, a lot of opportunism, and I think, yeah, I just want to make Blüdhaven feel very visceral and very real, because there's always the inevitable problem of comparison to Gotham, where Gotham has been around since 1939, and Blüdhaven just doesn't quite have that same history, that same weight in sort of fictional terms. So drilling deep into what the city is and where it sort of places in the DCU, I think it's a really interesting thing, and it's kind of a conundrum to solve as well for I think anyone who takes over Nightwing.
Right, because you like you said, you talk about Gotham, and even with New 52, because I always try to, I guess, compare it to runs that have come out recently. Scott Snyder, I think one of the best parts about his run was being able to characterize Gotham while still making it fresh for people like me who were new to reading at the time, being enveloped into that world. And I think there is a beauty to energize the setting of whatever character you have in the book. You talk about Star Wars, and it's like, you can talk about Tatooine, you can talk about all of these different planets that you're on. I think it's the same for any city involved, right? Whether it's the architecture, even if there isn't, I think, as much history, I think the beauty of it is like you as a writer get to fully embellish the reader into where they are in the world and what the difference is from the world of Blüdhaven versus Metropolis or any other city in the DC universe.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a city kid. I was, raised my whole life in London, and now I'm in New York, which is a quite comfortable move from London because you sort of the ropes going in, just with taller buildings and different accent. But yeah, I don't know, I'm fascinated by cities. I think they're one of the preoccupations of my writing in general. So that's always one of the things I enjoy getting my teeth into with anything superhero-y generally. I love Gotham. I think Gotham is one of the most malleable places. It has such a foundation, but it's also this magical city where there are mad scientists, and there are man bats flying overhead, and there are there's killer crocs in the sewers, and I just think it can be like kind of anything you want it to be. And I think that's one of the interesting things about different watching different writers take on, sort of Batman runs and things is that you always kind of get this slightly different version of Gotham and these different justifications for Gotham. I remember talking to James Tynion about his like read on Gotham, and it was like, oh, Gotham, if the people to justify people staying in this city, it has to be such a cool happening city that people will risk, the Joker poisoning the water supply and getting robbed every time you walk around a corner. And I have a totally different take on that, which is that I think people stay in cities like Gotham because they don't have a choice and they have nowhere else to go.
Which is, I mean, that's a complete 180. You think, right? From, you want to talk about whether if you're one of the Gotham upper class people, or even someone who might just be living on the street trying to figure out what to sort of do with their life. And it's also like, the surrounding areas. It's, hey, someone might move to Metropolis, but that doesn't necessarily mean, I mean, that the stakes are sort of bigger there, right? With all of the different villains that Superman has.
Yeah,
to face.
there you get stepped on by a giant robot spider. So it's 6-1. But yeah, I also don't think either of those takes negate the other, because again, the city has so much history and so much sort of, there have been so many different versions of Gotham kind of like overlaid on each other, and I think that's like a real city. The cities are places of contradiction.
Yeah, it's the one of the greatest walking paradoxes I think I've ever read in fiction, but I think that's what makes it also more beautiful, and that's what I'm very excited to see you on Nightwing specifically, because you get a chance to not only make Blüdhaven your own, but you get to say, like, this is why Blüdhaven is just as important as a Metropolis or a Gotham or a Star City or something like that.
Yeah, I think that the sort of thing I'm interested in is treating Blüdhaven as its own place rather than going, this is why it isn't Gotham, this is why it isn't Metropolis, because comparison is the death of joy, both in life and in everything else. So it's just about kind of not isolating it so much, but just treating it as its own place, a real place.
Which I'm very, very excited to see what you have going on for the city. And you obviously mentioned earlier Tom Taylor and Bruno Redondo were just on the book, right? Issue 78 on, and I mean, they've been on that book for a long time, sort of needing to place Dick Grayson back into the spotlight as one of the biggest heroes of the DC Universe after he got brainwashed, or not brainwashed, but lost all of his memories. Couldn't figure out what he was supposed to do as, hey, I'm Rick Grayson, and then them putting Dick Grayson through the last couple of years of, and this is why he's important. Did you and Taylor talk about the transition between books, or was it just more so of, I got the notes or something else of the sort, or I'm taking this book? How did that work out?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting, Tom's been very very gracious, and he reached out to me to sort of say congratulations and that kind of stuff, but you don't always want to have a long conversation about that, because everyone kind of respects that once you do what you want with the character, you do your bit, and then you sort of you pass the baton on, and people riff on it. They it's like improv. You're taking it the sort of, as long as you're sort of going yes and also this, I think it's people kind of want to give you the space to do your own thing.
Right, and again, like having I guess for in your case, having the creative freedom to be able to push Dick Grayson forward as a character. I mean, that the opportunity in of itself just sounds, it just sounds awesome. From what you're going to be able to do with him. Could you tell me a little bit more, if we can get anything about the brand new gangs and some of the villains that you're going to be using in this run?
Yeah, I mean, I think there should be a thing coming out soon about the gangs. We've done a little press thing, but yeah, there's four main gangs. There's the blockbuster gang who are massively depleted after events. Both the death of Blockbuster, that doesn't help. But also, some events towards the end of Tom and Bruno's run, which I will not talk about because I can't remember what has come out yet and what hasn't. Um, but there's them who are very depleted and are sort of trying to cling to the power they have left. There's a group called the Teddies who are sort of their main thing is car boosting and carjacking and drag racing. There's a group called the Flyboys who are sort of drug dealing, genetically altered with fly DNA. And there's a group called the Clean Cutter Crew who are an old Blüdhaven gang who are sort of like street gang who are trying to sort of reclaim some of the cities, and they're a more sort of traditional kind of street gang with some quite suspect philosophies. So there's these sort of four gangs that are kind of starting to really go at each other on the streets and are making the streets feel dangerous. And all of this is happening after the city's been somewhat kind of lifted up and gentrified a little. There've been people sort of pouring money into the city, which has made it attracted to crime to begin with. And one of the people who's been doing that is Dick Grayson with the Pennyworth Foundation. So he's definitely, Nightwing's going into this definitely with a sense of this is a little bit my fault. This is a little bit my problem that I've created, and we sort of start the whole run with the gang leaders sort of sitting down and deciding that they're going to work together. So that's where we're sort of starting with. There's a bit of there's about a 2-month gap story wise between where Tom and Bruno lead off and where we pick up. So yeah, there's all these things have been happening. There's these four gangs. They are making the city feel unsafe again, and Nightwing's gonna have to do something about it.
And one of the things that I'm most excited for about your run is going to be your take on the police complex, specifically in regards to Blüdhaven, because not only can you say so much there, I mean, just everything that is at fault with the system and how those faults can be exploited. I mean, it's a commentary that I think sort of sometimes gets washed over because obviously, like, sometimes you have Batman and other street level heroes working with the police in their retrospect. But one of my favorite comics ever is Gotham Central, which Greg Rucka and Ed Brubaker showed that it's not all roses and a nice flower garden with the police and the people that they have to work with, and also the people in there. And I don't know, it's just one of those things that, especially with the commentary that you can bring along there, it's something that I'm hoping that is going to be able to make me think and strike me, which I'm super excited for.
Yeah, I mean, there are always things I'd always rather treat something with nuance and make it messy and complicated, because sometimes that'll make people shout at you online, but that's a perk of the job. But yeah, I think in any of these systems, they can be inherently corrupt and inherently wrong, but there will be people trying to do the right thing, misguided or not. But the Blüdhaven, PD has been sort of famously one of the most corrupt. They're worse than Gotham cops is a long-standing fact, and that's really, I think, one of the defining things of the city. So I'm definitely not going to shy away from that, and that definitely becomes part of the story. Another interesting thing that Tom's done is replace the corrupt commissioner with Maggie Sawyer, who was like a long-running Metropolis cop. So there's someone at the top of the police trying to do the right thing, but that not always worked out for Jim Gordon
Nope.
either.
Which is, yeah, so again, something I'm super excited to see, because I love the conflicts between characters. If you don't have that conflict between not only characters that you're writing in the book, but also the setting that you have, it doesn't make up for a story that will keep you on your toes, that will make you think, that will turn you in different directions. So to hear that from you, saying that you're not going to shy away from the commentary that you're planning to bring along in this, on top of staying true to the city's unfortunate messes, but planning to take a new spin on it, it's pretty refreshing to hear, because I think we definitely do need that in comics, and to have that in a one of DC's flagship books is pretty, like, it's happy for me to hear that.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I think, conflict's at the core of storytelling. It's just how it works. You have to slam two opposing ideas together, and that's what creates something new.
For sure, for sure. And you're getting to write Dick Grayson, who is, again, one of the most famous characters in comics and one of the most important characters in fictional media. I guess my question is twofold. My first question, I guess we could start off with this, is what makes Dick Grayson as a character stand out to you from the rest of the DC superhero core?
He's the big brother, I guess, is the sort of specific role he fills, and it's very much the one. And big brothers can be absolutely inspiring, and they can be protective, but they can also be a little overshadowing, and they can be pains in the ass. So he's kind of, he's kind of the embodiment of that, in that he's also someone who can kind of do anything. He's extremely intelligent. He's a detective in his own right. He's also capable physically as almost anyone in the DCU who's on the street level, who's not super powered. He was raised by the greatest detective in the world, but was able to sort of bypass. He had a better childhood. He was able to sort of bypass some of the sort of horrors of what Batman deals with. So, yeah, I think he's in a really interesting place. He's had a self-destructive streak in the past, where when something bad happens in front of him or to him, he becomes extremely driven to this sort of self-destructive point where he drives people away and all that kind of stuff. But now he's been through that. He's been through the ringer. He's been Batman. When Bruce was gone after Final Crisis.
Mm-hmm. One of my favorite.
He's come out.
Yeah.
He's come out the other end of that, and so now when something very bad happens, he's a little more equipped to deal with it, a little more. He's got more tools in his toolbox. So that's a side I'm very interested in. Like, what happens now when something really bad happens?
Yeah, that's
and
it.
You really, really piss him off.
I get to hope to see more of that anger, some of that that curiosity that like stokes the fire of Dick Grayson, which is like why he's one of my favorites. He sort, I guess, like, it's weird for me because he was never, I guess, he was always one of my favorites, but he was never my favorite Robin. I think that always pelted Tim, because Tim was the one who I sort of grew up with. But I always admired Dick Grayson from
same.
Yeah, I always admired Dick Grayson from the spotlight, just because he's not only is he so important, it's also like it's just a character you have to respect. That whenever he's in the room, if he's leading a team, he's always someone that you have to listen to. I guess my the follow-up question for me would be, how do you make your version of Dick Grayson as Nightwing stand out from previous versions of the character that we've had? And we've had so many different interpretations and reiterations of his character.
Honestly, I don't know that the job is to make the version of the character stand out, because that might mean sort of fundamentally changing them, and that's definitely not the job. That, you know, the job is to continue their story and take them into new places and present them with new challenges. You know, all of these characters are vehicles for story. That's why they've sustained so long, because you can tell horror stories, you can put them in detective stories, you can put them in straight up, uh, you know, gangland violence stories. I'm kind of interested in exploring a bit of all of it, and uh, I don't know, just putting him through the ringer, seeing how he responds to different challenges, different forces of darkness.
Yeah, no, it's because, yeah, I mean, that's what I've always wanted to see Dick Grayson go through. I mean, if you are going to break off from Batman and be your own, whether you're leading a team or you're flying solo, you obviously want to see him go through the toughest challenges that he can face. You know, if Batman, because the comparison has always been like Batman has a murderer's row of villains that is nearly unrivaled from, you know, both big two companies and also many other publishing media that isn't necessarily superheroes. But it's good. It's cool to see that you're going to be able to hopefully put Dick Grayson through or the same thing. Because I think one difference, and this is the thing that I've been talking with people about for like the last however many or so years that I've been in the fandom, is that it's sort of hard for some people to differentiate Nightwing and Batman, because Batman has all of these, like, again, like all of these amazing villains. You go through the list, and Nightwing just doesn't have the same pull. Like, you could probably say Deathstroke, I think, would be the easiest, like, one-on-one, but it's not the same. Hey, I'm fighting the Mad Hatter, I'm fighting Scarecrow, I'm fighting Two-Face, etc.
Yeah, because most of those comics where a lot of these characters first showed up, he was there too. That was, you know, most of his history is in Gotham, and Gotham has such a sort of gravity to it that it kind of draws everything towards it. I used the example, I did an AMA last week, and I was sort of asked similarly about his rogues gallery, and the example I used was like Professor Pig.
Mm-hmm.
Dick Grayson fought Professor Pig when he was Batman before Bruce Wayne ever did, but Professor Pig is definitely considered a Batman villain rather than he's considered a Nightwing villain. So, yeah, the sort of gravitational pull of Gotham does mean that anything that sort of gets introduced sort of ends up as a Batman villain. But you know, there's no reason that these cities are right across the bridge from each other, so there's no reason that some of them can't decamp to Blüdhaven, and there's always the space for new, ugly, terrible things to rear their head.
And I mean, I can't wait for those gears to kick in place. And speaking of, you know, being connected with Gotham, are you? How many? I talked with Philip Kennedy Johnson about this in his book, where we talked about, hey, like, which characters might not show up, and he said that it was, you know, you guys are in the bad office, you guys are probably like shedding ideas in and out. Do you plan on having, you know, guest appearances from others in this book that aren't Barbara Gordon, for example?
Yeah. I'm writing issue 5, which is issue 1, 2, 3, issue 5 of my run right now, and that's got a major Bat Family appearance, but one that's probably not the one that people will guess or expect. But Dick Grayson has made some decisions in Blüdhaven that might not be super popular, so I wanted to sort of start bringing that side of things in. He has a lot of people that look up to him, a lot of people who he needs to be accountable to.
Yeah, there's a lot of tethers and ties along with that as well. Because my friend, you know, I have to answer this question, but he's a super big Stephanie Brown fan, and I guess so am I. And we've been starving for Stephanie Brown content, and we're trying to figure out, like, you know, what book is she gonna appear in. But yeah, it's like, you know, I like that you're keeping us on our toes with the inclusion there, and whoever's gonna pop up in this book, because I bet all of those team ups are gonna be just as fun as you make them out to be when we get to read your Nightwing. I guess in the case of that, in fact, how's it like working with Dexter Soy? This is his first long-term ongoing project since, from what I can recall, Batman and the Outsiders with Brian Hill. And I haven't got to see his interiors for a while. I know he's done some commissions and some off work here and there, but how's it like working with him on this book to see your vision of Blüdhaven realized?
Yeah, it's fantastic. Dexter was on board for the book before I was. When Jess reached out to me about it, she also sent me some art that Dexter had just done, just because they'd said like, "Oh, do you want to draw Nightwing?" He was like, "Yes," and he just drew this sort of take of Nightwing, which I don't think has actually been used for anything yet. I'm sure it will be, but I was sort of, just reached out and said, "Oh, do you want to draw Nightwing, or do you want to write Nightwing, and it's going to look like this?" And I was like, "Hell yeah, that's exactly." We're immediately on the same page, and I think we have similar references. And he just draws the hell out of everything. He draws the hell out of Nightwing himself, which is a very important part, but also the fight scenes are fantastic. I just try and give him space to do those and not cover it with like any dialogue, because just let him do his thing. The fights look painful, which is what I always appreciate in a superhero book. Sometimes the violence can feel very, very unreal and theatrical, and I'd rather reinforce that punching someone matters. It's not something you can go about and just do in your day-to-day life. So why can these guys? So I want every punch to hurt, every sort of everything breaks something, and he really gets that, and he really follows through on that. So by the time we get to the third arc, I might just be writing these 22-page fight scenes.
I mean, you should do an annual where it's just Nightwing and you got, Dexter on like all 30 or 40 pages, however long the annual is, and he's just plowing through. Because some of my, I think the most creative issues in the Taylor Redondo run that we were just talking about is just like, hey, Redondo, draw a continual issue where there's no breaks in between, like you're following Nightwing like here in, here out. And then issue 105 where it's you first person in Nightwing shoes, which is like I haven't ever like seen that before. Like, how has that not been thought of? And it's all done out well. Like, I want you, and I don't know, like I think it'd be cool for you and Dexter to be able to share some of those artistic bits as well.
Yeah, I mean, right now we're focused on the story, but I really do enjoy Formalism when it has a point. I don't like Formalism for formalism's sake, but I do enjoy playing with the medium. So I suspect we'll get there sooner rather than later.
That's going to be awesome. I can't wait to see what you have in store for Dick Grayson. And just again, guys, if you are watching this on YouTube whenever this is up, I do have the formulated release dates for issues 119 to 121, along with the solicited information documentation, which you can find in the description below. Lots of cool, amazing stuff. I cannot wait for Nightwing to start and get that up and loading, which is, I don't know if you heard, but Nightwing 118 by Taylor and Redondo is going to be released a week before yours. So it's like one to the next, and it's like, wow, it transitions so quickly, even though there's a 2-month time skip in story and in continuity.
I mean, sometimes these things happen. Definitely had to give them the space to finish what has been such a hell of a run.
So absolutely. So yeah, guys, go ahead, and again, I will be there for Dan Waters' Nightwing, and I hope you are too. Again, you can go to your local comic shop, ask them to pull over these issues for you on hold, and pre-order wherever you can get them. Today, we are recording this on Friday morning. We just got a press release for your brand new book with rising star artist Hayden Sherman. I love their art. Love their art on Dark Spaces. It's a book called Batman Dark Patterns, which is being released on the 11th of December, which is what I got from the updated information. And it seems like it's going to be a detective-based story based in your case. What can you tell me about this specific book, Dan?
So this one, the editor, Ariana Tatura, and I have been working on for feels like roughly forever. We started talking about this right after um, we finished doing sort of Azrael, and we wanted to work together again. And both just really liked the idea of doing a fully stripped back early days Batman, some sort of grisly, nasty detective stories, loads of sort of forensics and street level violence. So we started creating this. We sort of had the idea of putting this into having 4 different cases over 12 issues, detective stories. Batman about 3 years into his career, where Gotham's still an absolute mess, and people are sort of reeling from this explosion of horrible things that have happened, these gang wars and the Joker's emergence and Killer Croc in the sewers and all these kind of things happening one after the other in this city of very poor people who have come here to try and make a better life for themselves. And once we started looking for an artist, we originally planned to do a different artist each arc, so we could pull in some really good artists who might not have the sort of time to do a 12-issue book. But the first person we approached was Hayden. Approached them about doing one of these arcs, and Hayden just said, "Can I just draw all of it?" And we were like, "Absolutely, you can definitely just draw all of it. Please come and draw all of it." And I'm so glad that they are. We have, a different Batsuit. We have our own Batmobile. We have our own sort of aesthetic for Gotham. It's just we have this stripped back cast. It's Batman, Alfred, Gordon, and a few new faces, but literally like 2. And that's the sort of support structure that Batman has. Very little gadgets, sort of batarangs and a grapple, and then just his wits and his fists.
Oh my goodness, like that's so, because I've seen a lot of, like, Chip Zdarsky sort of did, I guess maybe not completely the same thing, but he did do a 10-issue Batman the Knight story where you got to see Bruce before he really became Batman, like why and how did that all process out, and now you're getting to sort of, I guess, do like something a bit of the next chapter, like like not a completely established Batman, a Batman who's seeming like he's trying to establish himself in Gotham. Like you said, it's all in partly ruins. It's he's trying to figure out all of that still, and my thought immediately goes like, how, like, where are you gonna explore? What concepts are you gonna bring up? Like, what villains are you gonna show? And I also appreciate you bringing the detective aspect of it to it as well, because for all we get to see about like the Cape Crusader, sometimes the world's greatest detective bits fall under the muck a bit, because we want to see him being a superhero, being part of a team.
Yeah, I mean, the detective stories are generally my favorite ones with the character, and I also like where he feels fallible and vulnerable, by which I mean very much physically. So yeah, if you look at the first cover, the first issue cover, that's very much a sort of mission statement in that he's covered in band-aids and bandages, and that's very much the version of the character that I sort of gravitate towards, where he's always pushing himself like right beyond his limits. He's going so far out beyond the limits of what a man should be able to do, and he just keeps going.
And yeah, I mean that you're pushing the envelope and him getting to see whichever villains decide to pop up. I mean, early on too, right? These aren't villains that I guess he's had to, have a connection with for so many years, like where he is now, right? Like you see, like I'm reading Chip Zdarsky's run, he's popping in with like some new villains, obviously with Failsafe and otherwise like that, but you do get to see a bit of like his regular rogues gallery, and he's had those connections, for so long, but here it's like he's just starting out. Like this is sort of all new to him. His relationship with Jim, I would suppose, is not as strong as it has been, in recent memory, and I'm very excited to see those relationships envelop in this title.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's definitely part of it. He doesn't have the same. He has a trust, but not the same warmth of relationship with Gordon yet. He's very much trying to do everything by himself. There are some villains who he's met before, but at this point he hasn't sort of run through the gamut with them dozens of times, where he knows them back to front and they know him back to front. He might be meeting one or two of them for the second time. We have our first arc is a brand new villain, which I think you can see on some of the covers. So there's a new villain called the Wound Man, who I've had in my back pocket for roughly forever, which I think people will enjoy, especially if they enjoyed like the 10-eyed man, or the version of the 10-eyed man that Danny and I created for Arkham City.
So yeah, I mean, just hearing all of that, I mean, it's gonna be. I mean, I can't wait. I love early stories like this where it might be a little bit rocky for the characters, I mean, at the start, but getting to see sort of that develop, and also the 4 different cases in the book, right? Like it's a 12-issue series, as you mentioned, and you're seeing 4 of these, so having them get chopped up into 3 issue sessions, I believe. I mean,
yeah, exactly.
That's a pretty nice bite-sized 12-issue story to read, especially too. It's not just like this one, I guess, enveloping theme. It is a 12-issue story. It's like you're getting
there is a sort of beginning and an end very much as well. It's these things. I don't know. I'd say like tie together. It's not it's not you need to have read one story to understand the mystery of the next one. It's definitely not that. But there are sort of underlying mysteries, and his sort of the arc he's going through, feeling like the city is kind of turning against him in an almost sort of mythological way is definitely something that we're taking from its beginning to its end.
Oh, for sure. Who is I don't believe I saw it when I saw the press release. Who's do you know who's coloring Hayden Sherman and their work for this book?
Yeah, it's Triona Farrell.
Awesome.
He's an Irish colorist who I worked with years ago on my second ever create our own project, which was Deep Roots, and she was wonderful on that. And she then colored Hayden on the 2 backups we did, I believe, for Detective Comics. We did a 10-eyed man story, and that looked fantastic. So it was a no-brainer to pull her into this.
Yeah, I mean, you three. I mean, that's a nice creative team just there in general, and also, I guess my other question. But you said that Hayden Sherman will still be able to both do Absolute Wonder Woman and also this book at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, these books have been in production for a while, as well, particularly Dark Patterns. We've been working on it for a good long while. So we've just announced issue 1, but we're pretty much halfway through making it.
That's great to hear, because I marvel at the artistic talent and the work and the love and the craft being put into the stories, specifically on the illustration side. Like I know the comparison is going to always be Dan Mora because of what it seems like he does every month. Like from my understanding, it's like 60 pages in like a 28-day period for him or something like that. And it's like, how do you sleep, like, get all that in, like, these
Yeah,
amazing pages, and Hayden, like, hearing them do sort of the same thing. It's like, oh my goodness, like,
yeah, it's
that's
superhuman.
amazing.
Yeah, yeah. I have a hard enough time getting the script done in a week.
And it's like, you're already done with the page. You're like, how? But no, just to hear that from you, just to see that, I'm definitely gonna be there when this first issue drops. And I hope DC gets a deluxe edition out of it someday for you
Me too.
guys, because Hayden's art, I don't care what anyone says, that deserves to be an oversized, like, their work deserves to be an oversized format. To see you guys working on that together, I mean,
It's beautiful, and the cityscapes are just. I keep
mhm.
giving them more. I'm sure they want to kill me by this point, but I just keep giving them more and more. Just draw Gotham again. Just draw Gotham again.
Just draw a spread page. Let me just marvel at
Yeah,
the. And you said too,
yeah,
like, there's gonna, like, they were doing, like, brand new designs for some of these, like, concepts for characters and suits, and that's insane to me. Like, that's mind blowing. Like, just to hear that,
yeah.
like, wow.
I mean, I think that's part of that's part of the fun and the excitement as well of getting to do our own thing. As soon as we started talking about the bat suit, Hayden was just immediately said yellow oval,
And
yellow
yeah,
oval on the front, and we were like, yeah, absolutely, yes, we are definitely doing it.
yes, awesome. And again, for you guys who are watching this on YouTube, this just did get solicited. It's coming out on the 11th of December. Pre-order cutoff date is the 18th of November. So be sure to tell your local comic shop, wherever you pre-order your books, to order this as soon as possible. It is going to rock. It is going to be awesome. But other book that I thought of yours that was awesome, and honestly under-talked for how great it was Sword of Azrael, with you and Nicola. I cannot say his last name, or their last name. I'm going to butcher it. But Azrael, to me, he's always been someone that I've had a very conflicted history with, like, at least reading Batman, because, he was a Batman for a while, and I just didn't know how to feel about that, like, as a as a reader. But I grew to love him in James Tynion's Detective Comics run. And it was like, oh, like, there are aspects of this character that I must have missed when I read, those Joe Quesada drawn issues back in the 90s. So you getting to see you and your take in Azrael, not only that, honestly, one of the most criminally underrated books of that time frame, was like, how did you get to how'd you pitch the book to DC and all that stuff? Like, how did that all work out?
There was the book Batman Urban
Mhm.
Legends, which was a very cool project because it was kind of a showcase anthology for different characters and different creative teams, where DC were able to take some risks and some chances on things that were maybe a little less beloved, or hadn't worked quite so well in the past. So it was editor Dave Wilgots,
Mhm.
who has now stopped editing to write himself, and is a fantastic writer. But he was at DC at the time, and he reached out, was interested, wanted to know if I was interested in a character, and he, even at the time, he said it's not one that everyone loves.
Mhm.
And I was like, oh, it's Azrael, isn't it? He was like, yeah. I was like, yeah, absolutely, I want to do Azrael. I love that. I mean, I love 90s comics. With zero irony, I was very young during the 90s. I was born in 91, so um, I would see those things, and they were not for me at the time. I was too little, but um, when I did get the chance, I'd go back, and I love the tone of his whole Batman era. I
Mhm.
think those stories are criminally underrated just because people were mad that he was Batman at all. I think he had some really great story arcs as Batman in his own right, without you know accounting for any of the sort of overarching drama. Uh, and I just think the character is really interesting. he's brainwashed into believing that he's an angel of uh, by an offshoot of the Knights Templar, which is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And I love stuff like that. I love the bizarre,
Mm-hmm.
batty, comics
Mm-hmm.
concepts. But I've also religion has always been a big theme in my work. It's
It is.
something that religion and belief are things that I'm very, very interested in. And I was also raised in a sort of semi-Catholic household, and then went to an extremely Catholic high school.
Mm-hmm.
We get taken out of sort of math class and be very excited about that until we realized we were just being sent to mass,
Mm-hmm.
and we'd have to sit through that instead.
I can definitely feel
So
your pain there.
that's that's the stuff I know about, or know like the back of my hand. So to take this character who was an extremely violent angel of vengeance, but also this deeply rooted Catholic, that was stuff I could just absolutely get my teeth into. So we just did it. It was a 30-page story, and Nicola came on for that. They paired us together for that, and it went well enough, and it was fun enough that that we then pitched it as an actual miniseries. So yeah, I think at this point, it might change in the next year with Nightwing and Dark Patterns. I've been kind of the Azrael guy at DC for like a year or two now, which I'm totally fine with as well.
But yeah, I mean, just to get that, I mean, cool opportunity, but also like, because the one thing I loved about the book and a lot of your work as well, honestly, is you dealing with the believer types and figuring out like, are they, what their faith is it a good type, is it a twisted faith, what they actually believe, and you getting to play around with those elements, with Azrael and with the story was just like super neat to see, especially for a character like that who needs that sort of work in. So I thought that was phenomenal, and again, one of the most underrated books. And yeah, I mean, it's like everyone that I know now, at least who reads comics, when I say, hey, I read this by Dan Waters, they're like, oh, the guy who wrote Azrael back a couple of years ago.
There
But
we go.
but yeah, like amazing stuff, man. I mean, a story that
Thank you.
I love.
I'm very proud of it.
But also you got to work on a couple of other books at DC, specifically I guess Vertigo, because you guys had to, with the Sandman Universe and stuff like that. You were on House of Whispers. I think you were on. I remember seeing your name pop up in the Dreaming trade paperback. How was it like working?
I think that was the because of the one shot we did to launch the whole thing. So I didn't write for the Dreaming, but the one shot was released in all trades. House of Whispers, I came in later on to just sort of co-script and co-plot a little, because Nalo Hawkinson, whose book that very much was, had other commitments with she's primarily a novelist and short story writer, so she had other publishing commitments. She had teaching commitments, and they knew that Nalo and I knew each other, and I was already working on Lucifer, which was my main book. So I came on just to sort of assist her story. That definitely wasn't a book that needed a lot of input from another British white guy. So yeah, I did some on House of Whispers, but Lucifer was definitely my title.
No, for sure. Because yeah, I had a couple of friends, I guess, who noticed like, hey, your name is on it, but it's always like co-plotting, and obviously like the difference is for some of these, it's like sometimes if it's the artist for co-story or co-plot, it's like they also drive the story along with the writer. Sometimes it's different. Like I remember asking Jeremy Adams a couple of weeks ago, because he co-wrote Flashpoint Beyond with John's, like how much involvement they had. So it's always interesting to see like how much involvement there is in different aspects and specifics. how much people contribute to a book. So it's cool to see like your name all there, but also that like you helped out and turned out to be great as well.
Yeah.
But also in that case, like you got to do Arkham City, The Order of the World with Danny, one of a book that because I remember I was working at my comic shop when this came out, and I was trying to pitch and recommend books to different people, but yeah, how was it like working with Danny on the book? Because I think a lot of people picked up that book specifically at the comic shop because she was doing interiors. But they also became like super big fans of your work and like at the process, which I thought was super cool. So how was it working like with Danny on this title?
I mean, Danny is one of my favorite collaborators. She's one of my like closest friends as well. We met through Casper Wingard at a convention just because he was like, "Hey, you two should do a book together." Having sort of met both of us, or knowing both of us quite well, and so we did because I do what Casper tells me to. But we made a book called Coffin Bound for Image. We did 2 volumes of that, which was a really I think strange brain melding that made I think a book that horrified a lot of people and baffled some people, but some people really loved that book, including us. So we'd done that, and then when again Ariana Totoro, who's the editor on that book as well, when she and I were talking about Arkham City, she was the obvious person to go to, and Danny's not a big superhero person or whatever, but I showed her the pitch and she was like, "Oh yeah, absolutely." So it was kind of us bringing our Coffin Bound aesthetic into the DCU, and applying it to a bunch of these villains who hadn't maybe been utilized as much as I think they could be in the last couple of years. So yeah, that was an absolute dream of a project. It was so much fun.
Yeah, it definitely was a treat for me and all the people who I know who've read it. And the weird cook, because I've always loved Danny's art. It's just but I've never really gotten to see much of her from DC besides variant covers like here and there, and that's it. But getting to see her on interiors was pretty cool.
We've done she did a project. We've been doing bits and pieces here and there. We did a Superman Red and Blue story, which is one I'm particularly proud of, and very recently we did a Poison Ivy short for issue 25.
I have to check that out then. I'm loving G. Willow Wilson's Poison Ivy run. I think most of the comics world is sort of like, oh, like there's a Poison Ivy book, like it's amazing and all this. And I have not caught up yet. I promise I will. Just for you two. Of course, right now for Titan, you do so. So here's my story with the Titan books. I had picked up Cowboy Bebop a couple of years ago on a whim because Artrim drew a cover, and I collect all of Stanley Lau's covers. I didn't realize that it was your name on it until I sifted through my box again because I had gotten a couple more covers in the mail. I was like, wait, I know this guy. I'm interviewing him in a couple of days. So I picked it up, and now I'm like, you're getting to write Doctor Who. How has that experience been for you? Because I know that you're friends with Will. How did that all come about?
I mean, Titan was the first publisher. I mean, they're a London-based publisher as well, so I was probably more easily in the sort of sphere of their editorial team. But I've been doing stuff for Titan pretty much since Limbo, since Casper, my first book. They were the first company that sort of took a chance on me, and I did a few licensed books for them back then, and then I went off and did Lucifer and other things. And then they reached out to me with Cowboy Bebop, and that was a funny one because there aren't many licenses that I would think twice about because I'm a fan. But that was one of them because I think the original anime is such a phenomenal piece of art. And it's so complete within its 24 episodes that I didn't want to touch it unless I thought I could really do it justice. But then I had a story idea I really wanted to do, and it felt like it would only really work as a Bebop story. So I did go ahead, as long as we could pull in an artist who could do something cool enough for Bebop, but without just mimicking the anime or just drawing the actors of the Netflix show. I didn't think either of those would work. So yeah, so we found Lamar Matherin, who I think is phenomenal. He'd done some Bebop sort of fan art that was on Instagram, so I showed that to the editors, and it was obvious he was the guy to go with for that. So we got to make this really cool Bebop miniseries, which did pretty well. I think if the Netflix show had continued, that book might have continued too. And then when Doctor Who came around, they reached out to me for that too. And I've never written Doctor Who before, but a lot of my friends had worked on the Titan books before. Alex Packnadell had done some, Al Ewing, Cy Spurrier. And I was like, okay, it's my turn. I need to, as a British writer, I need to.
It's your rite of passage.
It's my rite of passage. Yeah, it's a sort of bingo square I need to like cross off. So yeah, I've done the miniseries for the new Doctor.
Oh, that's awesome. Because I also picked up the first issue because Archer had drawn a cover, and again, it's also me not realizing like, wait, again, interviewing this guy in a couple of days. But yeah, like I hadn't caught up, I guess, to the 15th season. I have two friends who are like super into Doctor Who, way more than I am. And they like know all of the lore and stuff, and I'm like, I only know like the baseline level, of this stuff. But I know that, the 15th Doctor, the actor who's playing him is the first black person who's playing, which I think is pretty amazing, like, accomplishment in and of itself. So yeah, how's writing on the Doctor Who, for example, different than say any of the other books you've done?
I think it's a unique franchise in that it's had so much longevity for a specific reason, which is that you can tell any kind of story with it. It's like you said, there's a ton of lore that you can really get into, and you can bog yourself down in if you want to. But for me, I always have a very strong guiding principle that is, if you need to know something that isn't in this book to understand this book, then this book fails. Just fundamentally. I hate getting to a final page or the last episode of some franchise show, and the reveal is that here's Blorgon, and I'm like, I don't know who Blorgon is, and it's being revealed to me as if I should know who Blorgon is, and now I feel talked down to as an audience, because like, well, you're not a big enough fan to enjoy this reveal or enjoy this enjoy this. You shouldn't be watching this right now. You should have watched other stuff. You should have read other stuff. And I don't think that's intrinsically dramatic in itself, without going too into the storytelling weeds. The drama should exist within the story. It shouldn't have to be pulled from other stories. All of which is to say that the baseline knowledge is all you should need going into Doctor Who, and each story should be able to set that up for you quite nicely and easily, which is, there is a person in a blue box, which can go anywhere in time and space. Uh, this person, therefore, does go anywhere in time and space, and they want to help. That's all you need to know going into a Doctor Who story, in my view. That's all you should need to know. So I guess that's what makes it different, is that it's so malleable. You can twist it and turn it, and you just will never break it. You cannot break that franchise. So it just opens the entire universe to you to tell stories.
Which is, yeah, I mean, even in the 4 issues that you do have, it all, like, I'm reading the first issue, I'm like, I can get the bits and pieces of understanding this material without needing to watch the show. And I think that's great for, people who might be new, trying to get into the lore, or trying to see, like, hey, there's a, Titan's putting out a new book, let me go see, what's up with that. And, that's great to hear.
Yeah, especially if it's an issue 1. You should be able to pick up an issue 1 and understand what's going on, regardless of whether you've even heard of the franchise before.
Completely agreed. And you get, you're getting to work with Kelsey Ramsey on this.
Yes.
And gotta say, I do love the interiors in that first issue that I read.
Yeah, I mean, I think Kelsey's another rising star, another Scott Snyder discovery as well.
Yep.
Like she worked with him in I think it was on the Dark Places.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember. Yeah, so she's been a dream to work with on that as well. She has such a style, but the likenesses are so there as well, which is a tricky thing.
Yep.
And I think an underrated anything that where you're drawing from actual real actors for your characters.
Oh, which is, I mean, that's exactly what you want from any adaptation from movies or TV shows over to comics, to get the likeness involved, but also making sure that, like, it's still in your style and you're enveloping that. It's a pretty cool thing to see. Yeah, like, how's Scott, like, getting all these people in? It's like, I gotta get this guy's number. Like, how do you? But yeah, I mean that's pretty much like all the time that we do have to talk about all these titles, and there's so much more I could talk to you about, but maybe we could save that for another day. Thank you, Dan, so much for taking the time to be interviewed by me to promote your future work, and once again, thank you to Will over at Titan Comics for getting this all handled. Dan, where can people find you on the interwebs?
I am at Dan PG Waters on all your favorite social media sites, and probably some of the ones you hate. I'm also the best place to find me in this sort of age of internet diaspora we're in. Diaspora.
I like that word.
Is the Dead Air channel .ghost.io is my newsletter / website thing. So subscribe to that, and I send out weekly emails, which tend to be the things that I would have tweeted in the past. Anything I sort of think about or want to write about a little bit, and updates and links to things like. And you can also not subscribe and just check out the website, because everything's up there too.
Awesome. Well, that is going to be it from me. You can check out Dan on all of the stuff there that he suggested. It'll be down in the description. And also, please pick up Nightwing, Batman, and Dark Patterns, and as well as Doctor Who at your local comic shop or any retailer near you. Dan, you are always welcome back on my channel, so we can obviously talk more comics. I'd love to have you back on. But
thanks very much for having me. I'll take you up on that.
Thank you. I am Dom of X, once again, comicreleases.com assistant editor. You be you. Take care, everybody, and dominate the day wherever you are.